Okay, alright. Hi, my name is Rachel. Today we have another Authors Behaving Badly. Apparently all I do here now is talk about authors who murder or stalk people and then also read terrible books. Thank you all for coming to this that I do here now. If you'd like to support the channel, I don't want to forget, you can like and subscribe, or you can, if you want to support me monetarily, I have a Patreon now. You can join the $1 tier, or if you want early access to videos and voting privileges, you can join the Court of Shits and Giggles or Potato Starch Marxists. And a real quick thank you for being a friend to my Potato Starch Marxists, which are Molly Prophet, Reba Media, Allison, Ebby, and Carlin. Thank you all so much. I just am so excited to be doing this as a thing. I don't have time to get a part-time job because the amount that daycare would cancel out me getting a part-time job, and I'd have to work around me getting that job. It would just be useless. So this is my job for now. So stay-at-home momming and this relationship that we have cultivated here. It's nice, isn't it? Okay, today's author is Anne Perry, who has written a mega pint, you could say, of crime books, of murder thrillers, stabbies. But she's also Juliet Home. We'll go with home. And when she was 15, she bludgeoned somebody to death. Juliet Marion Home was born in October of 1938 in Blackheath in the United Kingdom. Oh, that's London. So London. She was born in London. In June of 1954, Juliet was living with her parents in New Zealand. Her parents announced that they were going to divorce because Juliet had actually found her mother in bed with somebody else. Somebody who was definitely not her father. And her father around this time had also lost his job. So things were sort of falling apart in her family and in her life, and Juliet was about to be sent to South Africa to be living with an aunt. She's gonna take up residence with her aunt there. Home had been in and out of school and had not been attending for 3 months because she had been dealing with tuberculosis since she was 13 years old. So all of this was coming as a huge shift for the 15-year-old Juliet. Juliet at the time was extremely close to another girl her age whose name was Pauline Parker. They had become friends 2.5 years prior when they met at Christchurch Girls High School. Parker had regularly written to Juliet when she was in the hospital. Both girls bonded over their love of books, but also over the fact that both of them had illnesses in childhood. So Parker had osteomyelitis, which was like a bone infection, and Home, as I said, had tuberculosis. So they bonded over this, and according to Home, both of them sort of romanticized the idea of being sick. So as this friendship continued and developed, the two girls sort of developed this fantasy life together, this fantastical world where they had different names. Pauline was Gina and Juliet was Deborah. They created their own religion and even their own saints based on celebrities such as the opera singer Mario Lanza. They wrote books and plays about this fantasy world life that they had created. They were very close, and Pauline even went on family vacations with Juliet's family. So when Juliet's parents were divorcing, the two girls did not want to be separated. They were hoping that they could convince Honora Parker, Pauline's mother, to let her move with Juliet to South Africa, to let her leave and be with Juliet. Unfortunately, Honora Parker said no, and Pauline Parker became enraged over this. On the afternoon of June 22nd, 1954, the three of them, Juliet, Pauline, and Honora Parker, Pauline's mother, went on a walk through Victoria Park in Christchurch. So they went down a path in a wooded area near a small wooden bridge, and with half a brick inside of a stocking, as in pantyhose, they bludgeoned Honora Parker to death. After committing the murder, which they had planned beforehand together, the two girls went back to the tea kiosk that they had actually just had tea and lunch at with Honora just a few minutes before, and the owners of the tea shop, Agnes and Kenneth Ritchie, met them, saw that they were covered in blood, and Pauline said, "Please help us, Mommy has fallen and hurt her head and she's covered in blood." I'm paraphrasing. So Agnes Ritchie takes them inside while Kenneth goes to check on Pauline's mother, Honora. So 450 feet down the path, he finds her body, which is in terrible shape, and it was clear from her injuries that this was not an accident and she did not just fall. The police were called, and they found the brick in the pantyhose covered in blood stashed a little ways away, like under some nearby trees. Of the murder, Juliet/Anne later said, "I felt I had a debt to repay. Pauline was the only one who had written to me when I was in hospital, and she threatened to kill herself if I didn't help. She was vomiting after every meal and losing weight all the time. I am sure now that she was bulimic. I really believed she would take her life, and I couldn't face it." So she agreed to go along with the murder because she was afraid that if she would leave Pauline, then Pauline would commit suicide. Police searched through Pauline's things and found her diary, and unfortunately, and very scary, Pauline had written beforehand about doing the murder. Apparently, the entry for June 22nd was the day of the happy event. The girls went to trial, which was a huge deal in the area, and both of them were convicted. There were a lot of rumors and speculations about the girls being lesbians, which at the time was seen as like a mental illness, but Anne/Juliet holds to this day that they were never romantic or sexually involved. They were just very close friends. But that didn't keep the media from speculating. Parker and Anne/Juliet were both convicted on August 28th of 1954 and sentenced to 5 years in prison because they were too young to face the death penalty. Juliet served 5 years at a women's prison in Auckland called Mount Eden's Women Prison. She was the only child, the only minor in the prison, and she was kept in solitary confinement for 3 months. Of this, she says, "It was cold, there were rats, canvas sheets, and calico underwear. I had to wash out my sanitary towels by hand, and they put me to physical labor until I passed out." But she also says, "Prison was the best thing that could have ever happened. It was there that I went down on my knees and repented. That is how I survived my time while others cracked up. I seemed to be the only one saying, I am guilty and I am where I should be." So they were released after 5 years. They were held separately and they never regained contact. Leaving prison in November 1959, Juliet tried to make a new life for herself. She says of this, "I had to give up my past, the hardest thing imaginable, and begin life in my new identity as Anne Perry, knowing even a tiny slip could unravel everything." Perry was her stepfather's last name. Home, Juliet Anne Perry returned to England, where she was born, and became a flight attendant. As I said, she never regained contact with Pauline again, who also was released from prison, took on a new name, and led a quiet life for herself. Anne Perry's first novel, The Cater Street Hangmans, was published under her new name, Anne Perry, in 1979. She writes fiction, particularly crime fiction, crime fiction, historical murder mysteries. Her series tend to feature like recurring characters, so one is William Monk, one is Thomas Pitt. By 2003, she had published 47 novels. She's also wrote some short stories for which she has won awards such as the Edgar Award. In 2005, she took part in something called Thou Shalt Not Kill, Biblical Mystery Stories, which was a short story anthology featuring several different authors. And oof, what a name for her to be involved in, I tell you what. And for 30 years, it went mostly unknown that Anne Perry was Juliet Hulme. Hulme? God, I can't say it. Until 1994. She gets a call from her agent in 1994 telling her that her story is going to be released via film. And the public had mostly no idea what had become of Juliet Hulme until this film was going to be made, where it was actually created by Sir Peter Jackson and features the lovely and beautiful and wonderful Kate Winslet as one of the girls, though I forget which. And the film, which was about the murder, Heavenly Creatures, led this Australian journalist to want to track down Juliet Hulme and find out what happened to her. She had heard that she had changed her name and become a novelist. So she basically cross-referenced like, okay, novelists with the same birthdays as Juliet Hulme, and found Anne Perry, who was living in Scotland at the time. And this became a huge story because Juliet Hulme seemingly dropped off the face of the earth only to find out she was actually Anne Perry, a very popular author of crime books. She had 100+ novels at the time, novels and short stories in print, and had sold like 20 million copies at this point, and nobody had known that she was a murderer. Anne admitted to her past, has spoken with journalists and documentary makers and a biographer since. She does deeply regret what she did, and she just wants to move on from it. She feels that she served her time. As far as writing her own story, Anne Perry says that she will not be writing her autobiography and will stick to writing fiction, crime fiction, crimes, murders, stabby stabs that happen in fictional settings, not the one she took part in. Normally it's the other way around. Normally it's author becomes murderer and then like loses all of their, you know, following. Instead it was author does murder, goes to prison, changes name, becomes huge author, then gets found out, and then goes on to continue to sell more books because people are like, it was a really long time ago. So long ago. Which, yeah, man, this is a dark story, eh? Anyway, that's the story, and let me know who I should do next. Thank you to Kathy for bringing this up. Anne Perry was on the list, but Kathy Tryhart got me to kick my butt in gear to get my notes together ready for this one. I don't typically read like crime fiction. I do know who Anne Perry is. I see her books everywhere all the time. Those are ones that I see like next to the James Patterson books at airports pretty often. I don't think I'll be reading Anne Perry anytime soon, but let me know if you read any of her books and you knew that she killed somebody. Okay. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to support. All links and socials are down below. My cat just cannot not have the attention on her. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye!